What's up guys, BARRYGAMING here, and today we are doing a Project Diablo 2 character build, this time having to do with the brand new Season 10 Runeword RAPTURE. This is going to be a proc leap build, so it has some physical damage, it has a ton of fire damage, heck, it has some other casting physical damage. There's a lot of options to it. The best part is, it doesn't even take that much to get off the ground besides the weapon. Most other pieces and the core of this build is very inexpensive to build. Let's jump right into it. Let's talk about it. So let's get into this build because there are so many different options in it. The gameplay of it is so smooth and amazing, and I want to share what we have for you to hear today. So at the crux of this is a fire build. Much like how you use flame bellows for the bellow bar whirlwind build, you're using the brand new Runeword RAPTURE for this effect. Now there's a couple things that are really cute with this. You'll see there's a 14% chance to cast a level 46 fissure. That is a ton of damage, and beyond that you are going to have a 30% chance to cast level 35 lower resist. So the one thing I want to point out with this build is you're essentially able to provide between this and a conviction aura, just from those alone, it's somewhere around like 79. It's kind of crazy, 79 fire resistance you're able to shed just from the curse we're putting out and that aura, beyond what we're using on items here. Now, like I said, this is a very flexible build. You can do any type of 3% fire damage charms whatsoever, and it works out to be pretty dang good. And beyond that, to get this going, like, this is the main thing you need to get. And luckily, it's a Vex, a Jaw, and a Low. Thankfully, Jaw and Low, a lot of people don't even want on ladder, so you can maybe get each one of them for like one high rune if you want to break their Jaw Low for, like, you know, Vexes and stuff like that. So that is something really cool to note, that this is an easier one. You only need a couple high runes to get this going, because every other piece you can basically get for a couple like world stone shards. Simple as that. You can get some very basic versions, and then as you go through this build, it gets stronger and stronger. Even with a very weak version of this build, it can do tier 3 maps, so blasting through tier 1s very early on is very easy. Now when it comes to this, there's only 2 items you can socket this into. Number 1, in my opinion, the better version is the Ogre Maul. The Ogre Maul has a much smaller minimum to maximum range, and usually when you're playing Leap Barb, you want a very tight range on your minimum damage to your upward side, because again, you want your minimum damage to be as high as possible to guarantee the amount of damage. The other option is a Thunder Maul, and you can see there it goes from 183 to 1027 versus 468 to 643, so it's a much wider range, but it really comes down to whatever your personal preference is. The roll on the enhanced damage on it isn't all that important, and again, the only other 2 things that roll, cold resistance and extra gold, neither of which are very important for this build. Resistances aren't very important on this either, but I do want to go over it step by step what you need to be using. Number 1, Hellmouth is a must have. Try to get a -10 enemy fire resistance. That is going to be absolutely huge. It also adds fire damage, and most importantly, it has 2 procs, because again, this is a proc build. Number 1 is the fissure right here on this, and then over here we have both meteor and molten boulder. Now, because we have things like our physical damage on leap, we have molten boulder that does part of that damage as physical, and I think even meteor does as well. We are going to also be running an Atmos Scarab. Now this helps for a couple reasons. Number 1, with leap we apply curses very easily to packs, so this is going to get a level 15 amp damage for physical attacks. That is already really cool. Number 2, this gives us a ton of bonus attack rating, which is really good because we're not using a ton of AR charms that we normally would in a physical build. And because we have 2 curses, yes, we have amplified damage and we have lower resist, we are running Rakor's Virtue. And mainly the whole reason why we're using this, 3 sockets, so you can put 3 fire facets in it, and then you may also apply an additional curse. You can have both lower resist for all your fire damage, and you can have amp damage on the amulet. This combination is key. Out of this entire build, these are the 4 pieces that are mandatory, in my opinion: Atmos Scarab, Rakor's Virtue, RAPTURE, and Hellmouth. And the reason why this is such a quick build to get up and running, I say quick, but you need like 2-ish, maybe 3 high runes worth of value here, because you can get any old Rakors with probably 1 or even 2 sockets in it. You can get any old Atmas, and you can get any old Hellmouth, even if it's only just -5. very cheap for like world stone shards. So it's something very, very easy to come across early on. If you start a normal leap build type thing, you can transition to this very much, because besides that, everything else is purely up to you. We'll start with rings here. So one very inexpensive one, if you can find very cheap carrying wind, you can use these as well, because remember, you're getting your mana life or your mana steal from your Raycors. You're not getting any on gloves. You can use like a string of ears. There's really not really any other great options. I mean, I guess if you want to do Magic Vine, you can do like a gold wrap or something, but rings are the flex spot. You don't need to use carrion wind. I like it for the extra twister procs, even though it's not a ton of extra damage, but there's a ton of different options. If you want cannot be frozen, throw on a Raven Frost. That's also going to help you with your attack rating. You're getting tons of dexterity and attack rating, which is really good. Me personally, I haven't noticed a big loss with Leap when I'm frozen, and it's not very often, which is why I don't necessarily run it. Besides that, just going for any old attack rating, minimum, maximum type damage rings, all res rings if you want to get to your max res if you're playing a hardcore. This is the beauty of this build. You can build it as glass cannon as possible or tanky with these flex spots, because you have 2 rings, a belt, boots, and your chest piece to choose. Now, speaking of chest piece, I personally like Dragon, and out of the best in slot options, a Sir and a Low is actually cheaper sometimes than what you would normally do in different options. Now, Dragon has a couple cool things. Number one, it has 2 different procs. One, when you're struck, you can cast level 18 Venom on yourself. That's a little bit extra poison damage going out. And number 2, a 12% chance to cast level 28 Hydra. Now, unbuffed and like not modified by any of your other stuff, those do about 400 to 450 damage per Hydra, essentially, or per Hydra shot. It does add up when you have like a whole army of them from these leaps that you guys saw at the beginning. Beyond that, it also has defense versus missile, which is kind of like your one weakness here. It gives you strength, also gives you some physical damage taken reduced, which is really, really solid. I personally like this. I think this is really good. The other option that's probably going to be considered one of the best is probably a plus 15% fire damage Ormus robes. You're going to throw 3 plus 5 minus 5 fire facet in this, and you're just going to go to town. But again, the way I play this build, and I'm going to kind of tell you guys exactly how I go about it, it works better with Dragon, but there are tons of options you can do here. You can see I've literally tried every single class proc out there. I've tried Innocence. All of them kind of fall flat. Corpsemorn is okay, except for the fact that there's a 12% chance to reanimate. And you get these skeletons popping up. The downside with that is with leap builds, you want everything to be right on top of you. And when you're leaping and they're not on top of you, that's a negative. And the skeletons draw the attention away. If you want to go more into the physical side of things too, you can always throw something like a Fortitude on if you want to go absolutely crazy. I mean, you can do Ethereal's Might with enhanced damage jewels. You can do Ethereal's Might with fire facets. There's just so many different options. You can even use Leviathan, Shaft Stop if you want to go for 50% PDR. There's a ton of options here. And then with the boots too, another big flex spot. You can go with something like Gore Rider if you want to try to push your overall deadly strike. This brings us to 60 deadly strike here. There's a lot of different options for this. You can go with just ones that I kind of prefer, and I just want to go with like Magic Find and Tri-Res boots with some faster run walk, because again, the weakness of this build, you can see right here, is we are not going anywhere near the cap of our resistances. If you're playing on hardcore, definitely go with something like this and then try to get like a physical damage reduction roll, because this build can still have like 30 to 40% physical damage reduction with this very offensive setup. Another one you can do is just Marowak. If you want to save your rings for either, you know, the Carrion Wind, or you want to do something else, you can always go with the Marowak. It gives you some strength, dexterity. It gives you mainly that cannot be frozen. You can also go with the Inferno Stride if you want to get some additional fire damage on there. All those things kind of add up. But you see there's a lot of flexibility to this. Now, the reason why I made this build is because way back, probably like 3 seasons ago, I've been trying to make a Leap Destruction bar work. However, Leap and Destruction has a lot of really cool procs. It has Molten Boulder, Meteor, Frost Nova, regular Nova. There's a lot of different elements to it. And then in tandem with that, you have a Phoenix, which is giving you that redemption aura, minus physical or fire resistance, and also enhancing your physical damage. But you can see here, 3 to 8. It's interesting here. Let me swap over to the right skill real quick when I show you guys this here. So you can see the damage is a lot lower on the bottom end here with this build. But the other thing is, I'll show you guys real quick. Let me just jump into a fight real quick so you guys can see how the procs work with the destruction build here. It's very centralized. All these auras, all the meteors, it's mainly the meteors that are doing the damage with this type of build, where it's everything's more centralized right on where you're landing. Whereas the other build, when you're doing this, you're getting a lot more procs that kind of go all over the place. You're getting the fissures on the ground. You're not as reliant on that meteor damage that is only falling to like one spot. And as you guys can see in my build here, I don't necessarily run cannot be frozen for everything, because I'm mainly going to show you guys cows here in a second. But that is the build, and that's why it's so flexible here. You can get physical damage reduction on a bunch of rings. Heck, you could even run like a whatchamacallit, the Volcathos ring or something like that if you want some enhanced damage. Things like that. It's very, very flexible. You basically have 2 ring slots, a belt, boots, and your chest to kind of be your flex, because again, you don't really need the damage from dragon. You don't really need the damage from really any of the chest pieces. You can just find a very easy 3-socket defensive chest piece, throw 3 fire fastest in it, and still provide very good damage. You can see here too in the Rakors, we're putting a plus 15, minus 15 fire res. That's from the 3 jewels there. And then also, of course, we have our Merc. We have a Defiance Merc because I do like that physical damage reduction that he provides. Infinity is the main reason why he is here. That Conviction aura is what we want. Crown of Ages, just giving him some, physical damage reduction. Templars to give a little bit of a might aura. You can see I'm just using a 6. Very basic gear here. A Marrow Walk for cannot be frozen. String for more physical damage reduction. Lava Gout for that proc on level 10 enchant. Heck, honestly, you could even, you know what? You could even probably use this right here. I think it's UR6. No, 5. Yeah, you could probably even run an IK armor in this, because it technically has a proc for 5% chance to cast level 28 enchant fire. So that's going to give more fire damage to your build. Personally, though, it just depends on if you can find one dirt cheap with sockets. Early season, they tend to have some value, which is why I don't. I'm going to jump in to show you guys a couple maps here. We're going to do a couple cow maps just because the density is the best. One thing with this build to note, the higher the density, the more damage you're actually going to do, because it is more proc. So let's jump over to that. Let's show you guys some in-combat battle. Now, this first one I'm going to jump into, you really want to go into ones that don't have plus max life, because one-shotting stuff and, of course, having extra fire damage is important here. The first map I'm going to show you guys, we're just going to show you guys some of the gameplay here. Of course, we're buffing up. We're going to go into the skills when we're jumping in here too, because this is kind of important. I personally like going for max battle command here, because that gives you +3 skills, which helps you out with resistances and stuff like that. It's also giving you some enhanced damage on your leap damage. 1 point in everything else. Combat masteries, maxing out the general mastery for the maces. 1 point in everything else. And then over in combat, essentially is maxing out leap attack and trying to max out the 2 synergies, bash and leap. Doesn't matter which one. They both provide 8% per level, so it's not too bad. But it really comes down to how you leap in this build. You want to be doing these little itty bitty tiny leaps. Not that small necessarily. I'll show you guys here in a pack real quickly. You'll also notice I have a creeper out. That's just from the carry win. Not a big deal. Be prepared. If you guys have any type of like epilepsy or anything like that, flashing strobing lights causing an issue, be prepared, because this build is very flashy. So I'm going to show you guys what you essentially want to do with this build. You don't want to stop, especially on cows. You're basically just going to keep jumping around the map in little jumps. You're never stopping to turn around to get packs, because you'll notice here, these packs in the back, they're like at 50% just following you, because they're running over all of these fissures that are on the ground, and that's going to provide essentially kills for them. So if you're going for it as fast as possible, you don't want to stop, you don't want to turn around. Of course, in a real map, you're going to be turning around, you're going to be looting stuff, things like that. But I do know Dark Humility, I did show this build off to him the other day, and he did rank it, I think, on his tier list, or it will be on there. He was kind of jumping all over the place, and that's one reason why I think the small jumps work better with Dragon, because see all these Hydras that are right here? they're just going to be nuking everything that's right next to us. And they do, I believe hydras do have a little bit of a splash damage, so having them very close is good. The other reason why I like running Carrion Wind just for my own softcore build is because it does add a little bit of extra damage for finishing off enemies. Because you notice we're not sticking around to finish off enemies, we're just kind of leaping around, finding the density, and all these enemies in the back here, see them all dying completely off screen over there? Yeah, that's because of the procs, and they continue following us, which is why we also want to occasionally do a big leap. If you guys didn't know, if you ever wondered why your mercenary might just not be attacking and running across the complete battlefield for you, the AI takes into consideration where your mouse is on attack. You notice he's not moving, he's running, but if I start clicking way over here, he immediately starts running to try to keep up. That's one thing that this game has, I think a lot of people don't know, and even Knight mentioned this, I think, on Discord the other day. You want to be, if you want your mercenary fighting, you need to make sure you're not clicking too far away. If you're clicking towards the edge of the map, your mercenary is going to stop attacking and just prioritize running after you to stay in range. Because again, the other thing that this Infinity is doing very well on the mercenary is providing minus enemy defense on all these targets, which is going to help because we're not investing in AR charms. And you can see here, there's just a lot of stuff going on. We have both of our curses on everybody, so they're taking increased physical and caster. And you can see right here, we're actually frozen right there. It wasn't that big of a deal with me. And you can see how like tanky this is, right? Most of the time we're not taking any damage. You do take a little bit more damage in regular maps, but when it comes to like a cow map, this is gonna be your bread and butter, I think, end of season. Getting cow maps, maximizing, getting like those 150, 200, 250%, if that's even still possible, maps is good, because the more enemies you're hitting, the more procs you're gonna get. You can see these molten boulders flying everywhere. You can see the tornadoes flying out everywhere, or twisters. And you can just see how tanky this build is. Like, I haven't really had a reason to even get close to my potions, except for when I'm like stopping to talk about something. Everything else looks really good. So what I want to end this on is one thing that Dark Humility does. He does like a 2-minute test on every build in cows to see how many kills you can get in that amount of time. I'm going to jump into the next map and show it to you, because it's actually really, really spicy here. So the amount of kills you can get in this build is insane. So let's do this right here at the end. Kills all. We're going to do a time here. So we're going to go for a 2-minute drill here. We're at basically 33.8. We are going to jump into 144%, which I think is a little bit higher than he normally does. I think he tries to stay around like the 120, 130 for the sake of consistency. And remember, we're going like full on proc build here. So you can see there's no extra HP. There's no fire absorb. Those are two things you really, really want to look out for. And let's get going here at the 1-minute mark. So we'll get going at 1 minute, we'll end at 3, and we'll see what our kill count is. And again, just for the sake of consistency, he tests everything at level 99. I usually test stuff at like level 85 to see how it does earlier on. But let's see how this goes. So we're gonna go from the 1-minute mark. We're gonna stop at the 2, and just remember that is our current kill count right there. So let's get ready and let's get going. Coming up to the 1-minute mark, there we go. So let's start jumping around. There's lots of good density right here at the opening, which is really good. Sometimes we do backtrack if it looks like the pack's not following us, but in reality, we kind of just want to keep moving on to the next pack, doing these little tiny leaps over and over. You want to do small ones too, because you want those packs. See all those cows behind us that just keep following us? We want them to keep following us because they're just going to continue to run over the fissures. They're going to get hit by these molten boulders. Occasionally they'll get hit by some meteors and such, and they'll even take damage from all these twisters that we're sending out to behind us. So this is kind of why I really, really like doing the build the way I do it. And very small jumps is what keeps the enemies following you. If you don't have the enemies following you, they're not going to always die, and that's going to be wasted damage potential and time while you are mapping. So not too bad. We're about 50 seconds into this. We have had some pretty decent density layout right here, which I'm actually really happy about so far. And again, look how tanky we are. We're not like at risk of dying at all. You can see we even have like cannot be frozen is really not affecting us at all. We're still very, very tanky here. There's no risk of dying really. Ooh, that looks like actually a juicy pack over here. Yeah, it is. Let's get all, oh yes, you can see it's just melting. But again, if you do have any issues with like, you know, screen flashes, stuff like that, I know there's a lot of screen flashing in PD2 and Diablo 2 and everything in general, but this one's a little extra, especially if you play in a very dark room. Your screen is going to be lit up with fire constantly, and I mean constantly. So we got about 20 more seconds to go. We're gonna see what our kill count ends up being here. 20 seconds to go. Let's see if we can find a little bit more good juicy density to end this out with. There's good stuff over here, and again, we're just continuing to drag everything with us here. Very, very juicy. And again, the higher the density, the better our overall damage will be in this build here. So we'll get this last pack right up here, because we did start like 1 or 2 seconds late, and that right there is going to be the timer. So let's get out of here. Let's see. Oh no. Okay, we got it. So let's see what our kill count is. Kills all. Okay, so let's do the math on this. So we are at, let's get the calculator out here just so we can see exactly what our kill count is for him. So we ended with 35,155, and we started with 33,799. So that is 1,356 kills. Divide that by 2, you have a score of 678, which is really, really good. And I will say the difference here is, I think, just the practicality and usability of it. Dark Melody, I think, was getting around the mid 500s-ish, and like I said, 200 to 300 extra kills come from just simply how you leap. And you can see right here, the way we're leaping is what really pays off, because we want to continue to have all these mobs continuously following us, because you can see, look at the back there, look at them, they're all basically dead back there. Even though I was dragging 10 to 20 of them all the way in the back, they do end up dying, which is really good. So you can see here, like, even if I do this here, you see all these enemies, they're all over the corner, they're dying. The ones that are coming from off screen that I haven't even hit yet are dying, which is why this is such a nice mix of physical and fire damage, because you can kill physical immunes, you can kill fire immunes, you can sometimes kill both. Like, if they have both physical and fire, you might be able to kill them, but in reality, this is not going to be a single target build. One of the most dangerous parts of this build is going to be the bosses at the end of these maps. I'll show you guys here at the very end real quick. You want to try to have density on you, but like, this Cow Queen is going to be dangerous depending on the affix, because remember, we have very low all res too. It is a bit slow. You can see here, we're just doing the leap right on the boss. This one's not too bad, but you might, if you want to kill these bosses while you're leaping, you might want to be mashing the full rejuve button to heal yourself up, because again, it's not the best. If you can have all those extra mobs coming and grouping right on you, that's going to be more procs, which means more damage, which is really, really key. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. If you do have any questions, or you think I missed anything here with the build, please leave a comment down below. I went over all of our stats here. I mean, most everything is going into strength. We have some dexterity just to make sure we're getting a high 95% or higher leap chance. Everything else into vitality. We went over the tree, we went over the gear, we went over the mercenary. If there's anything I'm forgetting, please let me know. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. This is kind of a one-off here on the second channel, the Barry Gaming 2 channel. I really don't know what we're going to be doing with this channel in general, but I'm going to kind of use it for anything that I just want to share with either different gaming communities or just having fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time.